Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's special event on Microsoft Purview. I'm Leon Godwin. I'm your Principal Cloud Evangelist here at Cloud Direct, and I'm thrilled to be your host for this event. Today, we're going to be exploring how Microsoft Purview can help organizations strengthen their governance, their compliance, and help mitigate risks in, let's face it, an ever-increasingly complex digital landscape. In today's session, we're going to focus on the core components of Purview, including the governance, the risk management, identity protection, compliance, etc. These tools are effectively here to provide a unified approach to managing and protecting your data, regardless of where it resides. And that's a key point, regardless of where it resides. According to Microsoft's 2023 governance report, more than 80% of organizations cite that their ability to manage and protect their data is their top priority. Yet less than half say they are able to do that effectively, and the remainder have said they struggle. Microsoft Purview offers a comprehensive solution to help address those challenges. And so today we're going to explore some practical examples and some use cases and give you some insights around deploying those solutions within your organization. I'm excited to introduce our expert today. So Karim Fayad is a security and productivity technical specialist from Microsoft. Karim has extensive experience in management. So Karim, welcome to the event. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. How are you? All good?
I'm very good. Very good. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm really pleased that you're here. So why don't we start off with an overview of Purview? So can you give the audience some insights of how Purview can, and the elements of Purview can work together to provide a unified data governance strategy?
Absolutely. And again, thanks for having me again. So, with Microsoft Purview, again, we went through a lot of rebranding our product names, starting off with some of our, information protection components in Azure RMS. But now with Purview, the idea is to be able to give you a full platform handling compliance, right? And compliance is a very, very big conversation because, there's a part that tackles mainly your data and tackles, the sensitivity types or the sensitive content within your data. Another area of compliance is to be able to manage risks within the organization and understand really behaviors, understand really what's going on with applications, how users are behaving when it comes to your data. And also the last bit I would say mainly is privacy management as well, to be able to manage your privacies and the privacy of your users and be able to save this content in a safe sense, in a safe manner as well. So lots of areas that we can definitely tackle within compliance, within Purview. And again, I'm more than happy to shed more light on those throughout this session, of course.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So why don't we bring that to life in terms of the audience, and what are those sort of specific challenges organizations are facing when it comes to data governance and compliance?
Perfect. That's a really good question. And again, I would say the biggest challenge for organizations really is knowing their data and knowing where their data resides. So we with COVID-19 hitting us all in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, we had to adopt a new mindset and a new approach of working, right? So embracing the hybrid work model, embracing working on the go, embracing the work from different devices, different laptops. Maybe you can attend your meetings from your phones or reply to emails from your phone. So now the attack or the surface of productivity is increased massively to kind of adapt to such conditions. And again, with that comes some potential security vulnerabilities and gaps, right? So you are accessing corporate data from your personal phone, for instance, or your personal device, personal station. You're saving documents, corporate documents, for instance, on your phone, on your laptop, and we're not really sure, the company is not really sure of whether this data is sensitive data to the organization or not. Should there be some sort of controls in terms of encrypting this document, or maybe you cannot share it with other personal users and personal accounts. So I would say one of the big challenges is knowing your data as an organization and where your data resides. And ultimately, once you know your data and where it resides, now what kind of access control would you give to those individuals, to your users and user groups. So again, associating certain rights with the documents and making sure that your data is not getting leaked.
That makes sense. It's almost like, excuse me, it's like GPS. If you're planning a journey, you've got to know where you are before you can say where your destination is, and doing that assessment, that makes a lot of sense to me. I just want to touch on compliance. I saw your colleague Aileen posted yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about that NIS2 is now applying in Ireland. So can you just give us an overview of the sort of regulatory landscape and the regulatory pressures that are in play that potentially Purview may be able to assist with?
Absolutely. And again, NIS2, again, I think it got live last couple of weeks, in mid-October, if I'm not mistaken, with the date. And again, it's basically quoting some of our compliance colleagues, GDPR on steroids, basically, right? So this is a very big standard that lots of organizations need to abide by in terms of how their data is being accessed, the access controls that is associated with customer data and PII data, and also the level of encryption you would have on the content that you'd be whether sharing internally with certain departments or certain branches, or even share it externally with certain contractors and vendors. So it's a very, very important regulation and standard that we will have, the majority of the organizations have to abide by. And on that end, we, as Microsoft, we are aware of such, regulations being out there from a data perspective, and we want to make sure that we kind of help customers, to have a smooth and easy journey to be able to stay compliant with those standards. So I would say maybe one of the key components and the key services that we offer within Microsoft Purview is what we call Microsoft Purview Compliance Manager. And the idea of Compliance Manager is to assess your entire infrastructure, your M365 estate, against certain standards. So NIS2 is definitely one of the standards that is in that list that we can assess against. GDPR is another one. The ISOs, for instance, we have roughly about 380 standards within that list. Yeah, lots of standards. And by the way, that list keeps on getting bigger and bigger as well. So we keep on adding more to that list. I think the one that makes a lot of sense as well for some of my customers in the UK based is, UK Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus. And we have a couple of those as well in the Compliance Manager. And once you run an assessment against those standards, we come back to you with a big table, basically highlighting the improvement actions and the gaps that we have spotted, and these improvement actions and basically technical tasks that can be carried out by the IT team. So we say, for instance, we've seen that a couple of your devices in the organization that are domain joined, for instance, and managed by Intune are not encrypted by BitLocker, as an example, just to say, to be able to encrypt your data, and apply and comply by a certain standard. I think I have a slide basically that kind of talks more about the Compliance Manager experience. So as you can see here, we have a total an overall compliance score, and as you probably know, in Microsoft, we love to give a score to everything. So compliance is one of those areas as well. We break the compliance score across your identity compliance score, your devices compliance score, your applications and data. And as you can see from that slide that I have, you do have a couple of improvement actions based on certain assessments that we have ran. You can see the impact of running that specific task or actioning that specific improvement action. You will increase your overall compliance score by X amount of points. And also it highlights which Microsoft solution or workload you'd require to implement to be able to action that specific improvement action. So our experts are trying to break down compliance standards in Compliance Manager into technical asks and technical tasks to help you increase your overall compliance posture.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm personally a huge fan of Cyber Essentials because one of the things it does is I think it helps get the process of going through it, helps put those controls in place, and I think it helps actually change a culture within an organization. So I'm personally a big fan of that. And one of the things it does is it's about the identification of risks and the auditing of the estate to help identify those risks. Can you speak how Purview can go and assist with that, and how that might help someone on that Cyber Essentials journey?
Absolutely. And again, the big percentage of data leakage in general happens from insider users, really. So people that are maybe departing users from the organization, or maybe someone unintentionally sending out a sensitive document, or he or she did not know that it's a sensitive document. So at some point, we can control the data, we can put certain rights on the data, but we want to really understand the behavior of end users, the behavior of entities within the organization. And ultimately, another solution within the catalog of solutions in Purview is what we call insider risk management. Is designed to be able to understand really how your end users are behaving with your information, and more importantly with your sensitive information types. And once you really know the behavior of your users. So for instance, Karim, I access certain sensitive content, I do certain activities. So I'm renaming sensitive information all the time, or I'm mass downloading sensitive information all the time, or I'm mass uploading to a third-party cloud application sensitive documents and contracts all the time, or with a certain threshold. So we can draw some sort of a graph around my behavior and my interactions with sensitive information types, and ultimately give every user in the organization a risk score of some sort, and ultimately create a corresponding DLP policy to stop me from doing so if I exceed a certain threshold. So we have a lot of indicators within insider risk management that can help shape those policies, and ultimately make sure that we're tackling data leakage in that sense.
That makes sense to me, because I'm sure none of us have ever left a company with some data. It never happens. And so DLP is that's an important thing. So can you talk to how data, the sort of relationship between data loss prevention and information protection?
Absolutely. And I think maybe on that previous question as well, there's one point that I kind of forgot to mention, which is we will create policies to stop data from being leaked by the behavior of your user. So understanding your behavior, if you're interacting with sensitive content, we can create what we call adaptive protection policies to be able to stop that at the right time. And also, we provide you with tools to be able to discover content, basically, based on certain investigations. So we give you tools to do a discovery of content if you're trying to create a case to be able to understand really certain certain documents have been shared, or maybe certain keywords have been mentioned. We can help with finding those documents, finding those PSTs and emails, finding those keywords as well, and coming back to you with a tool that can help you with auditing, for auditing purposes, obviously. Now,
maybe can I just change track slightly on that point, because one of the things I'm seeing in the industry is a mass drive towards the adoption of AI. We saw the announcement a couple of days ago in London around the agents and co-pilots, and then there is the more sort of transformative AI. Now, before you can do anything with AI, because the fuel for AI is data, understanding your data. So can Purview be used as part of an AI initiative to ensure that the data that is being used is appropriate and of the right provenance to be used in that scenario?
100%, right? So the majority of the customers that I'm working with in embracing the AI journey, with its perks and benefits, obviously, is the first question that comes to mind is, are we ready to embark on that journey, right? Is our data in the right shape to be able to be leveraged by the likes of Gen AI and co-pilots and all those amazing tools? And Purview can there's a very, very nice article as well. If anyone is interested, obviously I can share with you the article that talks about the zero trust principles when adopting AI services or co-pilot for Microsoft. So it tackles security when it comes to devices, it tackles security when it comes to identities and the access controls within the identity space, and more importantly, it tackles security and compliance strategies when it comes to your data, right? So is your data classified? Is your data labeled? Who has access to what documents and what data? Do you have retention policies and retention labels in place? And Copilot and AI, basically sees that and respects those kind of policies and rules, and be able to once you are prompting it within the system, it comes back to you with the relevant content that you have access to view in the first place, or that you have the right to access those documents in the first place. So it's a must-have, in my opinion. It's a must-do exercise before embarking on that journey and making sure that you're getting the full benefits in a secure fashion.
Yeah, I completely agree. A lot of my time, 60-70% of my time is talking to customers about AI readiness. It's not a case of you just go and tick a box and turn it on. It doesn't work that way. And actually, so if you've got data sets and you want to use those data sets, actually, when you have those kind of strategies in place that you talked about, and you've done those assessments, you know that you can't just use the data as is. Maybe it needs to go through some level of transformation first of all before it's appropriate to be used in an AI context, because you want to, for example, not expose yourself to GDPR challenges or NIST challenges, and understanding. So before you can make that decision, you have to do the foundational work, like AI readiness work. So I'm completely on the same page with you there. So going back to the DLP and information protection, can you talk about that sort of the relationship between those two concepts?
No, absolutely. And I think, as I've mentioned earlier, with challenges, coming up with organizations, I think the most important challenge, or the biggest challenge that I've seen, is knowing your data, as I've mentioned, right? So the idea is to be able to use tools and services to help you do what we call classification of data. And with Microsoft Purview, we can definitely support with some of those classifications as well. So, within Purview, we offer you different ways of classifying your data. And I do have a slide as well that kind of, talks more about the breakdown of those classification services, right? So as you can see here, and this slide might look, intimidating to a second, but, as you see in the middle of the screen, we do have a multitude of ways to be able to support our customers with classifying their data. So we have, very quickly, what we call out-of-the-box templates, which is templates that Microsoft provides to customers just out of the box. We can just check it, click it, and we will help you classify data according to those templates. Those templates, just examples of those templates, we have credit card information templates, we have social security number templates, we have physical addresses templates, certain regional templates. So for instance, UK passport number templates that we can identify and classify documents against those what we call SITs, or sensitive information types. Again, credential SITs, or credential sensitive information types, we can classify data that has credentials, secrets, passwords in it as well, just to help you kind of identify that kind of content. So that's the first way of classifications that we offer. The second mean would be what we call custom SITs, or custom sensitive information types, and that's when you as a customer build your own sensitive information type. So whether there can be a specific keyword that you want to classify your documents against, maybe a certain pattern, a regular expression of some sort. We support lots of means of doing so. If you have maybe a unique employee ID number that you want to track in your documents and data, we can help you with our custom SITs tools to help you build that regular expression or logic and create your own custom SIT. And the last classification type would be what we call the extended SIT, which is basically artificial intelligence and trainable classifiers coming into the picture, and classifying your data according to the metadata. For instance, just to give an example of how it works, we have you have maybe a document or a file share or a document library on SharePoint contains lots of contracts, or let's just say contains lots of resumes and CVs. So we set a trainable classifier on that folder. The trainable classifier learns what a CV in your organization would look like, the headers, the footers, the metadata, what it looks like. And if it sees anything that looks like a CV anywhere else outside of that specific document library, it will classify this document with the label, let's just say CV or resume, or however you want to call it. So lots of ways to help you classify. Now, once you have classified your data, which is the first and most important part, then we can help you with labeling of that content. So for instance, let's just say we use the credit card information SIT, the template. Now we can give that document, if it contains the credit card information, we can give that document a label confidential or highly confidential or any other name. And then again, you can associate certain visuals with those labels. So you can say, you can If it contains the sensitive information type, it has credit card information, put the label confidential, and also add a header or a footer to this document. You can add a watermark, for instance, in the case of contracts. So we can help you kind of label documents and have some sort of a tag on top of the document just to let you know how confidential or how sensitive this document is. Similarly, retention, which is another big conversation as well on its own that we can have. We based on those SITs, those keywords within the document, we can apply retention policies and retention labels. Meaning, if we have found the word or the credit card information, as I mentioned, then you want to retain this document for 5 years, maybe, or 7 years, or whatever duration you need to keep your data for, whether it's for compliance reasons or if you need this document for for later use. And the last piece of that diagram in the middle, which is the rights management service. Now that we have classified data, we have labeled data and created the right retention policies and labels, now we want to add what we call the rights of the document. So who has the right to do what with the specific document? Can he or she share the document externally? Can they edit the document? Can they print the document? Can they copy paste it from a managed application by IT to an unmanaged application by IT? So lots of controls there that can be associated with within those DLP and information protection policies. Now, yeah, tell me. Leon, yeah, perfect. So I just want to go quickly. Once you have created all of those classifications, labels, and rights within Purview, now you can extend all of that work to everything, right? So you can extend that to M365 services, so your Exchange, Teams, OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint Online, regardless of the operating system that you're using. So your devices, Windows devices, Mac OS machines, iOS machines, Android devices, cloud applications, not just limited to Microsoft 365 cloud applications, but also to applications like if you're using GCP maybe, or Box or Dropbox, we can extend those services to there. On-premises file repositories and SharePoint on-premises. Again, with certain scanners, we can extend our classification services to those on-premises services. And last but not least, what we call schematized data, which is basically going, with Azure services a little bit, and with your Cosmos DBs or AWS files or blobs, etc. So again, the point is the key work would be in the creating those classifiers, those SITs, those labels, and then with the right connectors, we can extend to all of those services.
That's ridiculously powerful, and it strikes me that in an organization, their data is the lifeblood of their organization. I mean, they should cherish their data, especially moving forward, and to have the ability, because one of my takeaways from that slide was, if you ask an organization, do you know where all your contracts are? Like, literally, do you know where they are? With this tool, you would know where every data type is if you've gone through the appropriate SIT route. So I think that's really, really powerful. And the fact that it extends, it's kind of like building a house. You have that SIT, you have your rights and your information protection kind of standards defined, and then you push that out to data, to your business data, wherever it is. So then that is the behavior of someone cherishing their data, because it is incredibly important. And I think it also leads on to the ability to leverage data outside of our traditional paradigm of treating data as kind of like data silos.
Yeah.
And actually coming up with a unified, the asset is data, not sales data, not payroll data. It's the business data, and how can then I unify that to drive additional value? And Purview is the thing that kind of gives you the power to do that. So can we look at then? I think we've done a really good job at sort of talking about the concepts. Can we look at sort of the deployment and deployment challenges that might exist with an organization looking to adopt Purview?
Yeah. So again, very briefly, we talked about some of the information protection and governance capabilities within Purview. Again, as I've mentioned, the catalog of solutions within Purview is massive. Lots of areas that we can tackle. So usually customers at the beginning, sometimes depending on the main use case, they get overwhelmed, right? So there's a lot of areas. Which ones do we need to start with? And with Microsoft, we help you basically start off first of all, we plan, we understand your business needs, your challenges, and we tackle those immediately. But I would say that the biggest advice that I can give to my customers is don't try to implement everything in one go, right? So we need to, we have guidelines, we have teams that will kind of understand your requirements and ultimately build that roadmap with you. Starting off small usually is the best way to go. So creating maybe the templates from, classifiers templates that you can just test out the certain services. You can scope it to certain,
Hi, Karim.
funding and services as well within Fast Track. So, one of our
we're getting a little bit of breakup on your feed.
Services that we offer. Leon, please.
Okay, Karim, if you could just drop and rejoin again, I think if you can hear me, that would be great. And yeah, so running in from what Karim was referring to, we're starting small. And I'm a big advocate of that. I often talk about that when it comes to the AI space. Don't try to transform the business, these monolithic programs. It's not the way to go, because historically, I think there's lots of evidence to show these monolithic programs don't work. So starting small with that initial adoption is key. I believe that with Purview, you can actually create policies kind of in a test mode. So you're not doing any actions from them. You're just applying those policies and data, so you can go and get a report. So it's kind of, if you like, in a passive mode, which is interesting. When Karim returns, we're going to go and talk about, expand more on some of those adoption challenges, and also look at some industry examples. So I'm just going to fill in for a moment whilst we're waiting for. There he is. In fact,
apologies for that. Yeah.
No problem. That's all right. These are live events. These things happen. So just whilst you're away, I was talking about the starting small and how you can apply some of these policies kind of in a passive mode. So you're not doing any actions off the back of them. You're collecting data to become informed, so you can make decisions about the actions you might take off the bottom. It's kind of like a passive reporting mode, for want of a better expression. I'm sure you could probably articulate that better.
No, you're spot on again. So we do have, once you're creating some of those DLP policies and inside the risk management policies, you can put them in testing mode, as you've mentioned, just to see how they're behaving, the results and the output out of that policy. And once you're satisfied with the results, then now you can put it on basically and activate the policy. And then you can also, what I was trying to say before I dropped off, is limit the scope of those policies to certain individuals, certain departments. So we want to start off with maybe the IT department, just testing out a couple of scenarios and policies. Usually that's the first department that we want to test with internally, and then we can maybe expand and go beyond the IT, maybe go with marketing, go with sales. And also, I think the most important challenge as well is understanding use cases and business needs as well. So that one diagram that I was kind of explaining around classification and labeling of data and the rights associated with the data, this is not, and I need to reiterate that with usually I do that with my customers, it's not just the IT's responsibility, right? So it's just the responsibility of the entire business and the IT, because the IT doesn't really know what's confidential, what's sensitive to every department, right?
Yeah, they're not fully informed around the business context of that data. Yeah,
not all the time. Yes, and this is something we do have a couple of resources. We call them, Microsoft Purview Information Protection and Governance Best Practices and Guidelines. Literally, the questions that an IT manager maybe is assigned for the data security project, he or she, they can go into every department asking a list of questions, and accordingly, that will help him or her shape basically the policies and what they need to kind of create within the Purview Admin Center. So lots of guidance there. If I can summarize very quickly, try not to implement everything in one go. We do have a lot of support and resources and guidelines on how to kickstart the journey, best practices in every element on every solution within Purview, and also leverage the good work of our partners, like Cloud Direct, from a post-sales experience and implementation. Fast track services are designed to support you with implementing what you have, and in this case, Microsoft Purview, and also building that roadmap out with the customers. So again, I can share those resources as well.
I think that'd be valuable. I think it's useful for the audience to have access to links and resources so they can understand where they can go to become better informed. One of the things that we offer internally is we offer these one-to-one workshops where customers can bring their business context. We have a dedicated data and AI division within our company, and we can go and help those, and those workshops are free of charge. So having got access to the resource, knowing that they should start small, are there any sort of industry vertical context to that in terms of, any specific examples that you can give maybe for a specific industry?
Yeah, no. So we and again, we do work, and I've personally worked with customers across lots of industries. So I've worked with customers in financial sector, insurance companies, banks, mainly in different regions. Lots of governmental entity as well, and healthcare entities and retail entities. We do have a couple of published customer success stories on our customer event as customer.microsoft success stories as well, which I can share the link to in the chat, talking more about their experiences, how they've adopted Microsoft Purview, the challenges that they have faced while implementing, and how they overcome those challenges, and also the biggest value out of and the solutions that they have leveraged out of the box. I have one of those customer success references that we have is within the UK, which is the Food Standard Agency within the government entity in the UK, how they leverage. Yeah. So I haven't personally worked with them, but it was a very known story published on our website, which I can share the link to in the chat as well. Basically what it is that we worked with them on the main ask was mainly classifying their data and also applying what we call Purview records management capabilities, which basically helps you with retaining data for a certain period of time for compliance standards and reasons, and also to be able to free up space basically from your SharePoint Online or your mailboxes from data that the business no longer needs, right? And kind of help with that. So we worked with them. We helped them implement records management within Purview, and also leverage some of those automatic labeling functionalities within Purview to be able to label content automatically once a certain keyword or certain SIT has been detected. So I think it's a great success story. More than happy to share more as well, or the link to those success stories that are published within Microsoft.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable because representing the audience here, I've gone through a lot of those stories against a variety of different products and services, and I think it's really insightful to see in someone else's word the journey they went on, how they adopted, what elements they adopted, because as you said, it's not about turning every single feature on day one. It's about building up to it. And you've just given an example of the food standard agencies that have adopted a subset of the features to help them achieve the compliance that are relevant to their organization. So I would encourage the audience, go and have a look at the Microsoft stories around the elements that you find interesting, and explore those and see whether or not that resonates with your organization, and that's something that would deliver a better outcome for your organization. So there's me representing the user from that point of view. Can you speak to actually any feedback that you've had from the sort of user community when it comes to Purview? Yeah.
So some of that feedback that I got from my customers, so from an admin standpoint, is for instance, they asked a little bit about connectors and if we can extend some of those Purview capabilities and services to not just Microsoft services, but go beyond Microsoft services. And again, within the Purview Admin Center, we do have a list of connectors that are published in there that you can just leverage right away. You can connect your help desk services. You can connect your HR services with Purview. These are the popular connectors in the.
Can I just touch on that? So that's kind of interesting. So we talked about DLP earlier on and how we definitely don't leave an organization with data, but it is something that does happen. Could you have an integration that says this employee has handed their notice in, connector to an HR system, and then actually dynamically have policies update? So maybe a more restrictive or a greater level of visibility is being maintained on that employee to ensure the DLP data isn't being lost because they're not copying it to a USB stick and taking it to a competitor.
100%. I mean, you touched on a very common use case scenario with those data connectors with HR systems. So absolutely spot on there, Leon. Okay. We can connect Purview with your HR service and HR system basically, and be able to listen for those signals for a departing user from the organization. For instance, we can trigger a policy in the back end within Purview to be able to monitor for his or her behavior as they're leaving. So we know that, as you've mentioned earlier, in a jokish fashion, people usually when they're leaving organizations, they tend to kind of, I want to keep this PowerPoint, I want to take this specific template, I might, use it in my next move. No, we can spot for those signals from your HR systems and be able to create indicators that, map certain behaviors. So if we see you, for instance, as a departing user in that 1 month notice, just as an example, that you're mass downloading sensitive documents from a SharePoint library, or you're deleting files or renaming files or forwarding maybe certain sensitive emails, we can, first of all, we generate alerts to let you know that this is happening, and we can also stop user and revoke access for that specific user from those documents, making sure that this data is not being leaked from the departing user. So to answer your question, yes, we call it what we call adaptive protection policies, which is basically DLP and inside the risk management working together to be able to negate that and stop users from leaking content as they're leaving the organization.
Okay, that's interesting. I was chatting with Aileen on our last call, and there's something similar within XDR, that kind of dynamic nature to say, okay, I need to intercede here because other things are happening. So that's interesting. And sorry, I hijacked the point about sort of the feedback from the community. Yeah. If you want to expand on that, that would be great.
Positive feedback from the majority of the customers I'm working with. Again, as I've mentioned, the advice is not to kind of turn on everything right away. We have support and teams like yourselves and other partners that I work with, and fast track services that can work with. We do have a big tech community as well when it comes to Purview. And I think this is a best way to kind of learn more about what's happening there, learn from other customers as well, the challenges that they might be facing, the success stories and the best practices, and people do share. Lots of MVPs as well are on that tech community. So I think I suggest that if you're really interested in leveraging more of the Purview capabilities, then join those tech communities and be able to get those best practices and experiences from other customers as well.
Okay, one of the things that I don't know if this exists in Purview. It's one of the areas I'm a little weaker is Purview. When I was chatting with Aileen, she was showing how there was a co-pilot for security that was able to go through this very dense, complex data security information that you have to be kind of a specialist just to understand. I think it was Copilot for Security, I think it was. And it was able to basically translate all that into a language that anyone could understand. This happened, cause, effect, this is what you should do next, this is what I've done, that kind of thing. Is that a feature set that exists within Purview?
Yeah. So again, with the rise of Gen AI, we understand that, there are a lot of co-pilots out there. There's a co-pilot for M365, which simply gives you some of those AI capabilities within your Office applications, mainly your Teams, your Office. And similarly, we have a co-pilot for security functionality and service to help you respond to incidents faster, and also to be able to leverage some of those data security controls that we have within Purview as well. So on your point, you're absolutely right. It's a co-pilot for security. You do have two flavors of it. You have a standalone experience, which means that you go to a specific portal and you basically ask the questions there or prompt it with certain asks, and it comes back to you with some information around certain incidents or certain devices or whatever the prompt is all about. And then we have another flavor of it called the embedded experience, which you can find within the Purview Admin Center itself. As you're navigating through your classifications, as you're navigating through your inside the risk management policies and communication compliance policies, you'll find on the right-hand side a tab, basically, or a window open where you can prompt AI and ask it around the data, ask it about certain insider risks or insider trading kind of cases, and it comes back to you with information around, what's happening, really analyzing the information, if it's an insider risk case or not, and also what are the best course of actions, basically, or action afterwards, what we need to do. So I do have one slider very quickly that kind of talks about that, or shows really what that looks like. So again, so this slide basically very quickly, on the compliance, communication compliance or regulatory compliance within Purview, you can see that we have spotted a couple of inappropriate messages, maybe, or insider trading messages, but we're not really sure of the output or the outcome. So we can ask Copilot for security, back in the day used to be called Security Copilot, to kind of summarize and give us some sort of a summary of what's happening, and also ask some questions if it's things, what kind of next action we should take. So you can leverage that to give you a second set of eyes, if I may say, on what to do with certain violations.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I can remember years ago having conversations with people in the sort of banking sector around sort of fraud detection and internal challenges, and the solutions weren't on the marketplace at that time, weren't terribly sophisticated, but were ridiculously expensive. What I find interesting about this is kind of embedded within all the Microsoft. It's pulling in telemetry from all the Microsoft products and providing that kind of, because there's specific examples around, stock manipulation. I find that really, really interesting. So is there any more sort of, roadmap or any other AI elements that you can obviously see? I've got a particular bias towards AI because I find it quite the enabler. But are there any more elements that are going on in that space when it comes to Purview?
No, I understand. To be honest, and AI is definitely a hot topic. And again, I understand a lot of us are using the likes of ChatGPT or Copilot to kind of, be productive and, kind of save time to a certain level, which is the whole point of AI. So yeah, in that area, we do have lots of things coming up in the roadmap. One of them, maybe I can share in this meeting, which is what we call the AI Hub within Purview. And the idea of AI Hub is to be able to give you an insights of your AI usage within the organization, and that's not just limited to Copilot AI usage. Like, you can also spot for any third-party AI usage within the organization, be able to understand which users, the traffic flow, the amount of data that is being generated from such usage, and also have some sort of activity, user-based activity, understanding what they're doing and control to that sense. It's still in preview. It's going to go GA probably soon. But again, we understand that with the rise of AI and Copilot, we want, IT administrators and specialists want to take a look into that usage patterns and governance part of AI as well. So yes, AI Hub is the new area that we are working on right now.
That's fascinating. So does that mean if people are using, things with AI and the number of web browsers you can open up and go to other, data externally, does that mean you could gain insights into how people, potential DLP scenario where someone is using, we can use ChatGPT because that's an example everyone knows, but believe me, there are hundreds of web-enabled AI services that someone can go copy, paste, and put data into. You're saying, so that's almost like a shadow IT kind of paradigm. Are you saying that Purview will be able to gain that insights, and the AI Hub is going to be able to recognize those behaviors?
100%. So we will give you a graph of what's happening. Visually you can see which users are interacting with which AI solutions. And with the right DLP policies as well, we can deny users and stop users from, let's just say, copy pasting sensitive documents and sending them to another Gen AI. Maybe we'll allow this in Copilot, since it's a controlled environment, it's a controlled application and service within M365 services. But then again, if you take it to ChatGPT or any other third-party Gen AI solution, we can stop from happening. So we can associate the rights and limit the functionality of the documents from being, processed by certain AIs as well. 100% spot on. Yeah.
That's fascinating. And I know that is a big concern. I mean, when ChatGPT sort of January 2023 sort of came out, by sort of March, April time, like loads and loads of people were using it across the globe. And lots of organizations just sort of said, blanket, you can't use them. But actually having the kind of visibility, especially you're talking about personal devices as well, I find that's really interesting. I think that'd be really powerful. So given that you've told us some upcoming stuff, is there anything else that's upcoming that would be, that I don't want you to say anything you shouldn't, but anything else that you can share?
I think what I can do is, a couple of things. So dynamic watermarking is also watermarking, with user UPNs or aliases being, which depending on the user that opens the document, and he or she will have their UPN or their alias as a watermark on the document. So this is something that is coming up as well. And there's actually many more functionalities. I think what I wanted to say, and I'll give it to you, Leon, is we do publish and we talk about all of those features that we are planning on rolling out in what we call the M365 roadmap. So it's a public link, which I can share as well with you guys, with everyone, talking about all of the features and in development. So we say which features that we are working on, what is the development timeline. So we're thinking that rolling out the service maybe or feature in the next 6 to 12 months, which ones have been rolled out, and you can get a sense of, basically, yeah. So what's new in Purview, and also which ones are have been rolled out for GA or public preview or general availability, of course.
That UPN's interesting because you didn't have to ask the question, who gave you that document? Because the answer is it's watermarked.
Right there.
I like that. That's very cool. Okay, so we're getting towards the back end now. Is there anything else that you want to share in terms of, impact stories or anything else that you'd like to cover off before we move to wrapping things up?
So maybe the one thing that I want to kind of highlight is around the knowledge sharing part with our community. As I've mentioned, and thanks for having me. Maybe, lots of those webinars are out there, and I'm more than happy to have follow up, just to kind of delve deeper into any of those areas in more details, of course, and have a deep dive sessions into any of those areas. I would highly suggest as well and recommend to following our tech community, the Microsoft tech community's blogs, not just for Purview, but for any of the Microsoft security, compliance, and identity workloads. Lots of MVPs, lots of customers, lots of discussions there, and sharing best practices. Also, within the Purview Admin Center, we do have in the overview tab, we do have what we call What's New as well, which we share the link to in the chat. Following up with the new features that we have published. And last point that I want to make is what we call in Microsoft, we call the Microsoft Ninja trainings. So these are a series of trainings that we offer to our audiences, our MVPs, our customers, that we produce maybe every week or every month, depending on the workload and the features and the team. I would highly recommend the audience to check out the Microsoft Ninja trainings. Very, very helpful. Lots of documents, lots of videos addressing certain use cases and certain scenarios. So these are, I'd say, the three takeaways for me.
That's interesting because in that sort of space, in the areas I'm sort of really interesting, there is a strong relationship. I'm an AI expert, but I have slightly less expertise when it comes to data. I have slightly less expertise when it comes to the governance of data. I'm actually maybe not slightly, maybe more than slightly less knowledge. I'll do that Ninja training. I think that's really good because I've learned a lot on this call today. So I think this has been really valuable, and I hope the audience has found it valuable. One last thing I want to cover off is we're actually holding a security event And as we like to do with our events, so if we can bring up the slide, we've got a security event going on. It's going to be held on HMS Belfast in London. So an interesting venue. We recently did a couple in the Winston Churchill War Rooms. Massive success, loads of positive feedback. And it's an opportunity for you to interact directly with ourselves, from Microsoft and other people in the organization who've been through that journey and will even feed you. So if you're interested in the CISO events, they prove to be hugely popular. I would recommend that you jump on it now, because especially because it's such an interesting venue, you might want to jump on that before it fills out. So just before I finish up, Karim, this has been brilliant. I hope we can do more of these in the future, because you've been, really informative. And I know that, it's a challenging subject in terms of data and compliance and risk, and it's broad and it's challenging. I think you've really done a great job bringing it to life. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here. So I'm going to sign off now. So once again, my name's Leon Gordon. I'm your principal cloud evangelist. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Cheers.